is the first research university in Hong Kong.
Being here, science and engineering, business, humanities, and social science, they're all within reach.
HKUST has one of the most international environments in Asia.
The procession will now begin. May the audience please rise. Please be seated. Welcome all to the HKUST MBA graduation ceremony for the full-time class of 2018. My name is Fong Yuk Fai, faculty member of the Department of Economics. I'm honored to be your Master of Ceremony today. It's my pleasure to invite Professor Stephen Nason, Professor of Business Practice and a core member of our MBA faculty, to deliver the opening remarks. Please welcome Professor Nason.
Thank you. Welcome to the 2018 MBA graduation ceremony. Okay, last night I was struggling, trying to think about what to say to you guys here today, and I took a break to read a bedtime story to my youngest boy. And as I was reading this book to him, suddenly I realized the book I was reading was about you. It's called Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. It's about a small kid who takes a journey to a far-off land full of wild things and wild rules, and through sheer ability, he becomes a leader of the wild things. Perhaps you are on the start of such a journey. Okay, stepping back from literature for a minute, it's really great for me to see all of you out here today. Great, because as I look out at you, I see friends, I see people who I respect. Great, because the fact that you have traveled all this way back to Hong Kong for this graduation ceremony with your friends, with your family, is a real indication of the value you put in the HKUST MBA. Not just the MBA as 3 letters that you put after your name on a resume, but the value you place in the MBA for the learning that you have developed through your classes. well, maybe not my class, but through your other classes. And even the learning beyond the classes from all the extracurricular activities that you used to hone your abilities for when you go out and face the wild things. Most of all, though, it is great to see you here today because it's an indication of the value you place in the people sitting next to you right now, in your classmates. Classmates who you have shared the joys and struggles of the MBA with, classmates who you have fought with late at night, doing projects under severe time constraints, and at times you may have hated their guts, and yet now they are your lifelong friends. Classmates who you will turn to time and time again for friendship and support. Now, I remember the start of your MBA program when I first met you 2 years ago, and you were young, you were eager, you were full of enthusiasm to learn, and the first thing you learned is whether you were a tiger or a peacock or an owl or a koala. And then you had an opportunity to take you were forced to take a required course from me and some elective courses, and I got to see you develop further. And luckily, you got to take even more exciting courses from some of our best faculty, like Taiyun and Veronique and Yukfai. Oh yeah, and from Larry the Shark Franklin. And even beyond the courses, all the extracurricular activities, the 24/7 grilling in the EPS, the study trips, the career trips, the different clubs, going to case competitions where you really impressed. Not only you made a name for yourselves, but you really made a name for our school, and you put this all together to land really nice jobs, impressive jobs that are going to be the springboard for your success. I think I speak for all the faculty and the MBA staff here today when I say we are honored to have been a small part of this journey. So today is a day where we celebrate. We celebrate what you have learned, we celebrate what you have achieved, we celebrate the people you have become. We celebrate with your cohorts, your classmates, who have been and will be so meaningful for you in your careers, and really, we celebrate your future, which I know will be glorious. So congratulations, and once again, citing my favorite line from Where the Wild Things Are, let the wild ruckus begin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen, for the very heartwarming speech. And also brings back a lot of fond memory that the students have. I'm very grateful that Stephen included my name. You know, I'm also an MBA teacher, but I teach the part-timers. So this is actually the first time I get to know you, and I work hard to know your name. Okay, we'll see how it goes. Okay. Going up next, it's an honor for me to introduce our keynote speaker today. He's our distinguished MBA alumnus and a great contributor to the MBA program and business school. With many roles, former president of MBA Alumni Association, long-standing member of the MBA Alumni Advisory Board and the Business School's Advisory Council. Professionally, he's the Deputy Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Monetary Authority, Hong Kong's Currency Board, and de facto central bank. He presides over all banking policy, supervision, conduct, and enforcement matters, with more than 400 staff under his supervision. A truly great leader. It's my great pleasure to invite our keynote speaker today, Mr. Arthur Yun, to come to stage and give a keynote address. Let's give a round of applause and welcome Arthur.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. But as Professor Fong has mentioned, I work for the HMA, so if there are any of you here who work for banks, please put aside your hatred towards me for this ceremony. But thank you very much for the kind introduction, and thank you very much to the business school for inviting me back here. What Professor Nathan just said reminds me of the good old days when I was an MBA student. I'm a part-timer, so when you were talking about those late night struggle to meet the deadlines, that really brought back a lot of memories. But I have to say that while it was painful at the time, it was actually, looking back, it would be the best part of my life. And I do hope that 20 years later, when you look back into this part of your life, you would come to the same conclusion. Indeed, it is my great honor to be back to the school today, and therefore a heartfelt thanks to the school for inviting me to this ceremony. I have graduated in 1998, so that was exactly 20 years ago. That was still the time when the part-timers have to grind through 3 years of hard working to get to the MBA graduation. Yeah, even the kids think that that's way too much. Luckily, the part-timers now have 2 years, but I think I shouldn't say that. I'm not saying that to mean that the full-timers are not hardworking, but you are equally hardworking, but just tell you that some of the gray hairs that I have came from that time. But I have been staying a fairly active alumni for all these years because I do think that the alumni community is something that we should all treasure. So taking the opportunity, I should first of all congratulate you all on your graduation. But from my perspective, more importantly, to welcome you all to the alumni community. I hope that after a number of years looking back, you would come to the same conclusion as I do, that the MBA alumni community is perhaps the most important network that you could ever have in your life. Well, this is a graduation ceremony, so I suppose I should say something inspirational, encouraging how you're going to flourish in the business world. From here, now that you're armed with the MBA program qualification. But also, you will no doubt appreciate that I'm a banking supervisor. A banking supervisor is not known for their ability to look at the brighter things in life. We tend to look at the dark side of things. So we tend to focus more on key risks and issues coming up, so that when we get hit by those issues, we can be better prepared to deal with them. So taking today's opportunity, what I would like to do is to share with you some my views on some of the key trends that I'm seeing today. A lot of the things happening in the business world could actually be traced back or find their roots back into those kind of key trends and debates going on in the public sector as well as in the business world. And I believe that it's important for us to deal with them because these key trends and debates, I believe, would really shape the evolution of the public policy formulation as well as business world development in the next few years. There are actually many types of trends and debates that I can talk about, but the first one, but first of all, I do have a time limit, I know. And so I'm not going to hold you up until dinner. But I do need your patience in the next 15 to 20 minutes. But even with 15, 20 minutes, I may be able to go through perhaps 2 or 3 core trends that I see happening in the business world and public sector policy formulation at the moment. An obvious one that I would like to start off discussing is what I call the global versus local debate. Now, what's that? To describe it is whether it's more important for us to defend local interest, or is it better for all of us to have a more connected and globalized world? Now, this debate has, in fact, gradually evolved and taken shape in the past few years, but really it's brought to the forefront by certain policies pursued by the current US administration, such as the recent imposition of import tariffs on steel and aluminum. I suppose you would have seen media footages of a bunch of US steel workers bundled behind President Trump, watching eagerly and clapping their hands when President Trump signed the executive order to impose the import tariff. That's pretty sensational. When I look at it, my eyes sort of teared up a bit. Wow, this is really moving for a president to really defend their own people. But perhaps we should set aside the politics here and look closer at what this kind of phenomenon exactly means in economic and business terms. Now, I'll quote you some estimates. According to the IMF, a 10% import tariff imposed by the US would bring down total global trade by 1% and knock down global GDP by 0.5 percentage point. OECD estimated that for every $1 of US tariff, world exports would suffer by more than $2 US. An interesting estimates by OECD, which I always quote, is that full liberalization of global trades in goods and services would increase average real incomes in developed countries by 1.3% and by 3 to 6% in terms of real income increase for newly emerging economies. So, depending on how you look at these numbers, one can say that according to the OECD estimates, indeed, fully liberalized global trade is actually more beneficial to the emerging economies than the developed economies. But that is not to say that fully liberalized global trade is bad for anyone at all. So overall speaking, if the US administration continues to pursue similar policies of increasing friction in global trades, the implication for the world economies could be very significant. Now, closer to home, this global versus local conflict sometimes takes the shape of whether a certain economy should always follow internationally agreed policies or standards, like accounting standards, like regulatory standards. Some would argue that doing so is not always in the best interest of the local economic, business, or financial communities. And therefore, we have seen calls after the global financial crisis of 2008 that perhaps Asia shouldn't really follow those kind of reform measures prescribed by the Western world because we didn't cause the crisis. So some of the more restrictive practices in the financial world, although it would make the system safer, but perhaps it could also unnecessarily constrain the way our financial markets work. There are certain degree of fairness in that argument because we didn't indeed cause the crisis. But that is also not to say that we would not face a similar crisis in the future. So in terms of these kind of financial market functioning debate, it is important for us to understand the relative difference between following international standards and suffering from it. We don't necessarily suffer from following international standards, but people tend to equate these kind of, if you follow the global trends, then you suffer locally. Now, let me just try to be a bit more provocative here. The global versus local conflict could, in fact, be also felt in recent years in Hong Kong in terms of the mainland China versus Hong Kong debate. Now, I said I'm trying to be provocative here, so if you don't like what I'm going to say, bear with me. There are definitely people out there who is trying to paint a picture that anything Hong Kong is sacrosanct, anything mainland China tends to be a bad influence. Some would even argue that the two concepts are dialectically opposite. Now, being an MBA graduate, I think you are better than being in those kind of a camp, and I do think that if you really sit back and look at things more objectively, you would know that things are not that simple or digital, and really we have to consider these kind of matters objectively. So let's not be political here. What I'm trying to point out is that from the few examples that I've quoted, it is clear that this global versus local debate can be sometimes highly politicized, whether it's in the US or in Asia or even in Hong Kong. It can be highly sensational, and it could actually be oversimplified from time to time. what we need to do is when we think about the implications of these global versus local debate, we don't let political rhetorics to mask the real issues involved. And I've already quoted some IMF and OECD estimates, which actually proves that globalization, a more connected world, perhaps is the better way to go for everyone. So I think we should all watch this development very closely. If the major economies continue to pursue the type of policies that we have seen in the past year, then the implications for the business world would be extremely significant. The second key trends that I would like to touch upon in the speech is what I would call the public versus private debate. The first one is global versus local. The second one is public versus private. What it means is primarily boils down to whether it is better for the public sector to be closely involved in driving development, or is it better for the private sector, the markets, to lead everything? Now, one immediate example, one very clear example of this debate, public versus private, is the recent debate in the US about the 5G telecom network. Whether it should be owned by the public sector, owned and run by the public sector, or should it be continue to be run by private sector telecom operators? The argument goes like this: constructing the 5G network is extremely costly and involves technology that could be sensitive from a national sort of security perspective. And therefore, some would argue that a publicly owned 5G network makes sense. Perhaps it's even the only way to go. Some would also argue that if you put that 5G network into the hands of the private world, because of the significant investment involved, you would sooner or later end up with a de facto monopoly situation. Now, on the other side of the argument, the private sector proponents argue that for the public sector to operate and run and build a 5G network, by definition, it would be very slow for them to leverage and maximize the benefits that can come from that kind of a network. Now, sweep into this debate the concern about public security, national security, then the debate would become very complicated and difficult. I guess this is a really classic example of public versus private debate that we see almost every day when it comes to the business world. How do we draw a line that the public sector should not step beyond? I guess the Western world has always been saying that try to push that line as far out as possible so that the markets decide as much as possible. But I think that we're beginning to see some examples of that pushback, that perhaps that line shouldn't be drawn through a maximization of market influence. But wherever the line is drawn, for those involved, I'm sure a lot of you are involved in the telecom industries. If you happen to be working for US telecom operators, then you would know that this debate, where it ends up, would have significant implications for your company. Another example of the public versus private debate is what I have to take it out from my pocket. Can you see this? That's a Bitcoin. No, that's a prop. That's not real Bitcoin. But that's what you always see in the media, is Bitcoin. A more generalized way is what we call the crypto scheme phenomenon. Now, at the risk of overgeneralization, the way I would describe things like Bitcoin is that it's an attempt to create a mechanism to facilitate transactions where the units involved somehow do not appear on the liability side of anyone's balance sheet. Now, that's a very complicated way of saying it. But just think about the money that you're carrying in your pockets that you're using every day right now. Those are issued by a public authority. So it appears on the liability side of that public authority's balance sheet. So in a way, it's backed by the public authority. This thing, not this thing, the equivalent of this thing, is issued through a private sector mechanism and is not on anyone's balance sheets, liability side of that issuer. And therefore, one could argue, and by the way, the money in your pocket is called fiat money. This is called crypto schemes, just to be clear about the shorthand form that I'm going to use. So this is a private sector alternative, or claimed to be a private sector alternative, to the currencies that you're carrying, but it's not backed by anyone. Now, of course, there are other exceptions like Tether, for those of you who are close to it. Tether is an attempt to create a US dollar-backed crypto scheme. But because of something that happened, because of they lost certain units, I think that the reputation of Tether is really badly hampered for the moment. But by and large, I would say that crypto schemes is an attempt to create something without any official backing, yet they were trying to make it useful in the form of a transaction mechanism. Now, at the end of January this year, there are already almost 1,400 crypto schemes being traded in the world, and the number is increasing. So when people tell you that this is limited in supply, per scheme, yes. But there's no limit on the number of schemes that you can create. So effectively, do you have a limited supply? I think you can judge for yourself. Now, I have seen very fierce debate among my friends on what these kind of things holds for the future of financial transactions, for example. Some would be strongly supportive. Some would say that this is a Ponzi scheme. But on this one, I think it wouldn't surprise you that from my perspective, I do hold a rather negative views on whether these are a genuine alternative to a currency. But what I believe or not is not the matter here. What matters here, what I would like you to bear in mind is that like a lot of other trends in the technology world, people are trying to create what they call the private sector equivalent of what the public sector is doing. And in that process, try to influence behavior and then benefit out of it through grabbing early mover market shares. Some of these attempts would at times lead to ideas that actually may not work practically. But what is important is actually not how they use it. It's actually whenever there are attempts to create these kind of things, there would be new technologies coming up. In the case of Bitcoin, the technology is distributed ledger. The potential usage of distributed ledger is much, much wider than crypto scheme itself. Hong Kong is going to launch a crypto-based or a distributed ledger-based trade finance platform very soon. We'll be the first one in the world to do that, and shortly after that, we plan to link it up with the Singapore system that would come on stream at more or less the same time. So what I'm trying to say here is that when we look at these kind of public versus private debate, don't get over-sensationalized. Don't, like my friends sometimes ended up with really verbal abuses of each other, but really look at the underlying technologies. The technology is completely neutral, although the application, the usage of those technologies could be highly controversial. Another iteration of public versus private debate is fintech. People always say that fintech is low in Hong Kong because regulation is stifling fintech innovation. I would beg to differ because I do think that technology would bring about benefits, but also certain risks. That's why the public sector would have to come in. But again, the more important point there when it comes to fintech, as an example of this public versus private, is where exactly do we draw a line between the relative role of the public sector in protecting the public and the role of the technology to push this envelope of development outward. And for those of you who are in the financial world or fintech world, you would know that sometimes getting this balance right is not easy, but it's nonetheless very important because it dictates how you actually interact with your customers in the next few years. So once again, when it comes to the public versus private debate in the fintech or financial world, think about it as an attempt to redraw that balance rather than a kind of a sensational topic. In fact, from all the examples that I've quoted in this public versus private debate, it's the same. It's trying to redraw that line, what the public should do, what the private sector should be allowed to do. Depending on how you redraw the line, there would be profound implications for almost everyone in this room. I already touched upon technology quite elaborately in my public versus private debate discussion. So it transitions nicely into the next debate that I would like to cover, is what I call the human versus machine debate. Now, this one perhaps is easier for you to understand because it's a very current one. We can ask more philosophical questions like, is technology the solutions to all human problems? Whether technology-led changes in human behavior is always good, whether it's good for four friends to sit around a table having dinner but communicating with each other through WhatsApp, not looking in their eyes and talk to each other. I've actually seen that. So don't think that that hasn't happened. I've actually seen people doing that. But again, let's not be philosophical here. I think the pertinent issue for business leaders or potential business leaders like yourself is how the evolution of technology would somehow end up impacting or even displacing human skills, particularly in the business world. Now, an immediate example of that is, I'm not sure how many of you drive an electric car. Can you show a hand? How many of you are driving an electric car? No? Wow, that's amazing. Because the government did not offer tax breaks anymore, I know. But probably you're aware that if you look at a Tesla Type S, depending on how you count it, actually a Tesla Type S only has about 20 to about 150 moving parts in it. A car, only 20, depending on how you count it again. If you count one ball bearing as one moving part, then you might have 150. But if you don't, then there are only about 20 moving parts in the Tesla Type S. A traditional, what we call an internal combustion engine ICE car, you easily have around 10,000 moving parts in it. Just imagine if we have more electric cars on the road and less ICE cars on the road. If you are in a car industry, either car parts manufacturing, car maintenance, what's the implications for you in terms of the skill sets demanded of you and how you're going to satisfy the customer demands going forward? So that's a very clear examples of the impact of technology on skill set, on capacity of human being. The impact of technology advancement is actually quite widespread. According to a recent World Economic Forum report, WEF report, it actually predicts that among the 25 major economies in the world, or 26 major economies in the world, we are going to see a loss of about 5 million jobs by 2020 when AI, robotics, and nanotechnology begins to displace human skills. The same technology actually creates new jobs. Those three technologies would create a net of 2.1 million new jobs, but net, you still lose 2.9 million jobs in those 25 economies. And you would no doubt appreciate that the new jobs created would demand completely different skills compared with those jobs that we are going to see disappearing. Now, in the financial world, the trend is also picking up momentum. Take Europe as an example. In the past 10 years, 5% of bank branches in Europe, in EU, have been replaced by online and mobile banking services. And the trend is actually picking up pace. So this is really, really bad news for those who are working in bank branches, but excellent news for those who are involved in designing more customer-centric ways of offering services and bringing services to customers. Now, here in Hong Kong, our banking industry recruit about 100,000 employees. Of those 100,000 employees, about 66% of the people are engaged in what we call back office function. Back office function is not necessarily bad, remind you. And some of those functions are in the areas of like fraud detection, fraud prevention, anti-money laundering controls, advanced risk management, etc. And those are really high value-added jobs, and those are not easily replaceable by machines. But there are also a significant number of employees who are engaged in relatively lower value-add functions like basic control, checking, data processing, simple interface with customers. And those jobs are really at high risk of being replaced in the next few years by machines. Among the remaining 34% of bank employees in Hong Kong, 31% of those are engaged in what we call client-facing duties. And we're beginning to see chatbots, we are beginning to see data analytics-driven way of distributing products and services to customers. And those kind of so-called client-facing employees would also have a higher chance of being displaced by machines, unless they pick up new skills in terms of how they actually serve the customers better and wrap the service around the customers. For the remaining 3% of bank employees, what we call middle office functions in terms of control functions, I think those people would also need to pick up new skills because with what we call RegTech, FinTech is one thing, RegTech is another thing. Usage of technology to help the regulatory process to pick up potential problems, potential internal control issues, it's picking up pace. So if those 3% of middle office employees do not really enhance their own skills, then sooner or later they would find they're out of a job as well. So I'm pretty sure that I've overstepped my allocated time already, but so I should try to wrap things up. I hope, although I may not be too inspirational so far, I hope I'm not scaring you too much. I'm not trying to paint a very negative picture of the business world. Business world is always like that. It's full of changes, it's full of things that will surprise you. For those of you who are a fan of Chinese martial arts, kung fu sort of novels, and you know Doku Gao Kim. Doku Gao Kim always hits you in the most unexpected angle and position in your body. And business world has a habit of doing that to people. So what I'm trying to do is actually to try to bring some of those unexpectedness into a framework that you can actually look at. A lot, as I've said earlier, a lot of the things that we see happening in the business world can really be traced all the way back to the few debates that I discussed earlier. And they are all about how do we redraw the relative balance between the desire to get a more globalized world versus the need to defend local interest, and to redraw the line between the public versus private sector influence, as well as how do we actually manage this human versus machine debate or conflicts in the next few years. Now, I do hope that through a more structured framework, you would be better equipped to look at these kinds of things in a more holistic way and then come up with your best response function going forward or action plans going forward. But please bear in mind one thing. It doesn't really matter whether you like these trends or not. That's completely beside the point. And there's no point for you to resist those trends. Whatever your political beliefs, there's no point in resisting those trends. It is more logical for us to find a framework that will help you to come up with a way to adapt to these changes and so to benefit from the opportunities that would arise when they do arise. So let me finish by quoting Charles Darwin. He said that it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives, although I know that you are all intelligent. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change that will survive. So as an MBA alumni, I am supported by a great business school and very strong alumni community. I'm sure that you all have a completely unquestionable capacity to adapt and flourish in the face of those fundamental forces of change. So good luck to you all in your future endeavors, and once again, thank you very much to the business school for having me here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arthur, for sharing your thoughtful and insightful view on the major trends happening in business, finance, and tech sector. Our graduating class is going to benefit from your advice and wisdom in the years to come. Many of them probably will have some immediate benefit by making better investment decisions. Okay. Next, I would like to invite Professor Tam Kar-Yan, Dean of HKUST Business School, to present the graduates of the MBA full-time class of 2018. Adamskaya Yulia. An Yong. Oh my God. An Yong Mo. Asano Maiko. Alexander Bakhtiarov. Upasna Bishk. Zhang Xiaohan. Chen Chang. Chen Ka Ho. Chaudhry Usman. Shaula Mehak. Chen Genxing. Chen Xiaoqi. Andrea Therese Choa Chang. Dancy Cheng Lin Shu. Shi. Choi Jae Song. Chao Ka Lun. Chua Patrick. Sam Dash. Divan Murdo. Fan Qianzhu. Fukasawa Mayuko. Feng Qingliang Kiran. Gao Fan. Mandakini Kahai. Karishma Grover. Amada Sangilo. Han Yu. Hong Xiuhei. Huang Xinjie. Jessica Natalie Hoy. Ji Yuan. Jiang Yuhan. Jinhua. Kang Shenlan. Kirka Prasad. E.J. Kim. Kim Chi-wan. Lai Chak Lam. Lau Weiler. Li Ji-hong. Lei Lei. Harry Lee. Lim Sun Min. Lim Su Yong. Benjamin Lin. Liu Yihang. Frances Lucena Juvet. Nishimura Kazuo. Nomura Naoji. Onno Veduvali Angelo Taro. Ozawa Kengo. Papula Aditya. Evgeny Pikolov. Charles Poon. Jan Michael Anthony Santos Porter. Michael George Ryback. Arjun Sachdeva. Jan Schmidt. Shah Shutich. Supachayakit Nong. Time Jesse. Tan Cheng Yang. Shen Yang, my apology. Thomas Abik. Toso Mateo. Jie Lai. Alvin Valerian. 王庆平、王川、黃仲謀、Wu Nathaniel James、肖忠恒、楊楠、於瑩、張琳、張明宇、Thank you very much, Dean Tam. May I now invite Professor Chen Tai-Yuan, Associate Dean of and MBA Program Director, to present the MBA Academic Excellence Award, honoring the top 10 students for their accomplishments of achieving academic excellence in their study. So I understand no one is told about who got the award, so I'm going to create some suspense. So now I'm about to announce, okay? Now I have the pleasure to announce and call the awardees in alphabetical order. The MBA Academic Excellence Award goes to Andrea Chang. Please stay on stage. The next one, Nancy Chang. The third goes to Patrick Chua. Sam Dash. Michael Han. Jan Potter. And Sitish Shah. Unfortunately, three of the awardees cannot be here today. They're respectively Ayushi Agawal, June, I know, they're not here to help me. Jun Wen Mo, Ankush Paul. Since they're not here, we cannot present the award to them, and then we'll present it separately to them on a different occasion. So I want to say thank you very much, everyone. Congratulations once again to the awardees. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Arthur Yun once again to come on stage to present the MBA Citizenship Awards for the students who have demonstrated exemplary leadership and service that contributed to the enhancement of student life and the MBA program. The award is voted by students, faculty, and administration, and the awards will go to the top 10 vote getters in the class. Now, I have the pleasure to announce and call the awardees once again in alphabetical order. Yulia Adamskaya. The next, Mehek Chawla. Sam Dash. No, quick announcement also is a surprise, okay? Karishma Grover. Larry Lee. Harry Lee, my apology. Almost let someone steal your award. My nickname is Larry. The next one, Benjamin Lin. Charles Poon. Who's that? What's your guess? Jan Porter. Yeah, quota of 2 left. Okay. The next one is Shtish Shah. The last award goes to Julian Wong. Now we would like to invite all the awardees to come on stage to take a photo. Graduation is a day to celebrate and remember. What better way to celebrate with an iconic Swiss watchmaker and our valuable corporate partner, Bon Mercier, which is known to many as the brand for celebration. Bon Mercier is honored to reward today the top winners of the MBA Academic Excellence Award and MBA Citizenship Award with one of its finest creations that symbolizes your excellent work and determination. May I now invite Mr. Keith Law, Managing Director of Bon Mercier, Greater China, to present the watches. Mr. Law, please. I have the pleasure to announce the top winner of the MBA Academic Excellence Award. We're going to congratulate Dancy Chang. And now for the MBA Citizenship Award, the top prize go to Sam Dash. Congratulations. I would like to invite everyone to stay on stage to take a group photo. Now it's my pleasure to invite Jan Porter, President of MBA Association, to give a vote of thanks on behalf of the full-time class. On behalf of the full-time class of 2018, please welcome Jan.
Hey guys, I'll keep this short, Larry, because we want to get to drink soon. Dearest batchmates, we're taking part in what is officially the last part of our MBA program. 2 years ago, in August 2016, we all came here to Hong Kong because we wanted to make a change in our lives. Instead of going out, drinking, partying, traveling the world, we decided to go to school, then go out, drink, party, and travel the world. And so because of this experience, we've all been changed. We've been changed by the 3 letters that are added to our names, MBA. Okay. We've also been changed by our affiliation to this great school. We've been changed by all of the rigorous work that we went through in these past 8, 9, 10, 16 months, however long, maybe 24, I don't know. And most of all, we've been changed by the relationships that we built with each other. This is the most important change that we bring forward in our lives and the thing that we can rely on the most. So I'd like to thank the MBAO, the administration, all of my classmates, all of the staff, so all of the unsung heroes, Zoe, Vanessa, who we bother every day for our MBA requirements, all of the professors we have here, Professor Larry, Stephen, Professor Tyuan then, for imparting on us all of the knowledge that we were given. And most of all, thank you classmates for me personally giving me a very good experience in my MBA journey. So thank you to all our guests who arrived and came to Hong Kong to celebrate with us. And we hope that you will enjoy the drinks to come in the next 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chen. And with that cue, I should wrap up very quickly. Okay. I believe HKUST will always be the home for every one of you. Echoing what Arthur just said earlier, we are proud to welcome you as a new member to our MBA alumni community, and please come home often. And this is time for me to conclude the MBA program graduation ceremony. May the audience please rise. This marks the end of today's ceremony. The faculty and graduates will be taking a class photo section outside, and you'll take around 10 minutes. After the class photo section, graduates will return to the robing room and get changed. In the meantime, all our guests, please join us in the cocktail reception and enjoy the refreshments we've prepared for you. Thank you, everyone.